At Make Mothers Matter, everything begins with one powerful step: listening to mothers. We collect stories, experiences, and data because real change starts with real voices. We turn voices into evidence and evidence into insights. Then we bring these insights where decisions are made: European institutions, the UN, the UNESCO, and beyond. We collaborate with researchers and partners to amplify our impact. We campaign, we mobilize. From petitions to global awareness, we speak up and we see impact. Change happens because mothers matter.
Dear guests online, I think the last numbers I heard were 460, and we should be here 480. Okay, so we are for many countries, we are here, not only from Europe, Spain, Germany, Portugal, Italy, etc., but also from Australia, North America, South America, Asia, and Africa. And I would like to warmly welcome you today, the ones who are here in person, and of course, the ones who are online, because today we are going to hear what the mothers said. We had almost 10,000 voices of mothers of a survey that we did in Europe and the UK, where the mothers shared their struggles, their hopes, their resilience. And because we know behind every statistic there is a mother who is hoping and fighting for the rights of her child, because we know that mothers there are children who are still in need of stability. There are families that are at risk. We know that is more than a statistic, that is behind every statistic there is a particular situation. And their message was very clear. The message was that too much is failing, and that urgent change is needed. And the place to be, of course, is no better place here than the European Parliament to ensure that these voices are heard and transform into concrete action to change. I would like to sincerely thank Maria Neuchel for hosting us. Maria Neuchel is an MEP from Germany, ACE and D, and her team led by Lina, who has been the master behind everything. I don't see her, of course, she's hidden right now. Thank you very much. And of course, the European Commission with the DG Santé and DG Just, the European Economic and Social Committee with Krista, and of course, civil society, academia, and other friends and members who are here today. And they are going to help us ensure that the voices of mothers are going to be heard and are going to be heard here where it matters the most. I would like also to thank the MMM teams, because without their work that was during months, we would not have been this event here today. Since our foundation in 1947, Make Mothers Matter, and then the delegation that was created in 2002, we have seen and witnessed important changes and progress, debates on care and unpaid care work, on gender pay and pension gaps, and on work-life balance, among many other topics. But the work is far from done. And as you can see, you have heard when we were funded, we can go, and we are never tired, we can go for decades and decades and decades. Until these too many mothers that we have, and until no mother actually, and no family faces any economic insecurity, a mother or the family that doesn't lack of any support, and until all the social inequalities don't exist anymore. So we don't intend to wait for decades for this change to happen. And the momentum is now and is here. And I think, and we all believe at Make Mothers Matter, that the change is possible, and the change, we can make it together and make it happen sooner. So, dear Maria, thank you once again, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. My part is really short. I open the door and say, welcome. I think this is my part and the part of my staff, Gina and I. I'm from the Social Democrats, from the German side, a member of the parliament 10 years ago now. And I'm 2 times mother and 5 times grandmother. But it's clear the real story about to be a mother or a grandmother, I think everybody from us have only one story. But collect all stories together, then we have the story from Europe or worldwide. What is the situation? What is the real situation for motherhood, for being a mother or for being a grandmother? For me, it's a pleasure that so many women and men are here in the room and online. And I think we have to do the next step in a world that is so crazy today, so crazy outside. So many things around about the I would say the big business in the policy. No, we have to do good steps for every day, for the mother situation, for the children situation, and so on. Thank you for being here. It was a pleasure for me to open the door. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. So just before we begin, just few practical notes. There is going to be a Q&A session after each panel. And for both, of course, the in-person participants and also the online participants, please use the chat function. There's not going to be an interpretation. So over the next 2 hours, we will take this evidence that we gathered via our survey and ask what must be done. Firstly, my colleague Angela will present the findings of our survey. Then 2 panel discussions will explore the report's more urgent themes, which they are going to be work-life balance and maternal mental health. So let's listen to what mothers have to say, and they say in the survey.
Thank you, Joanna, and thank you all here in the room and online for being with us today to an event that we have prepared with so much care and effort. Just to add to my introduction, beyond my role of projects director at Make Mothers Matter, I am also the mother of 2 boys, aged 5 and 8. And I can assure you, despite being a privileged woman, I have lived many of the experiences that mothers have told us in our survey that I'm about to present. Before starting this presentation, I'd like to share with you 2 ideas that deeply resonate with me and with the work we do at MMM. First, we are not mushrooms. As Danish author Emma Holten, who I believe is among the online audience, explains in her book Deficit, traditional economic theories treat adults as if they just appear like mushrooms in the forest, ignoring the essential role of caregiving and nurturing, such as childbirth, childcare, and household labor. These activities don't fit into conventional economic models, and yet this unpaid, often invisible labor, mostly done by women, by mothers, is what makes all other economic activities possible. And second, without care, we are nothing. Our progress is nothing. As British economist Tim Jackson said here at the European Parliament during the 2023 Beyond Growth Conference, without care, there is no economy. At MMM, we strongly believe that motherhood should not remain a private or hidden issue, but must be recognized as a public and political one. This is why we initiated this survey in partnership with global research company Kantar to ask questions that had never been asked before, to listen to mothers talk for themselves and create solid ground data for policymakers so they truly understand what is going on. Because as you all know, today data is essential to make hidden realities visible and to shape the policies that respond to them. We have traveled across Europe sharing these findings, meeting amazing partners and local associations, some of which are with us today, who were grateful to have this resource to support their advocacy on motherhood and care. And so what is data telling us? Let's take a look. Among the 9,600 mothers in the 12 European countries we have surveyed, our main and sobering finding is that a majority of mothers experience mental health challenges. Next slide, please. Mothers are exhausted. There's too much on their shoulders. 67% reported feeling overloaded, with countries like Portugal with 81% or Spain 78%. But this is not over. There is more. 1 out of 2 mothers, 50% among them, stated that they suffer from mental health problems. That can be anxiety, depression, burnout, peripartum depression. We found in Spain, 42% of those mothers stating that they feel anxiety, 33% of Swedish mothers depression, 28% of Belgian mothers from burnout. Again, 27% of Belgian mothers with children below 1 year old, peripartum depression. Next slide, please. So what some of us told us when asked what helped them, this is what they told us. Nobody. Personne. L'anxiété et le burn-out, même les médecins s'en foutent. Nobody. I just had to get on with it. No one supported me. I was looked for the strength to get through this. They don't feel supported. And Dr. Alain Grégoire will tell us more in the second panel discussion about mental health. So now we wonder, why are mothers suffering? Well, there is no silver bullet. There is no single or simple answer. But from our data, we have identified 3 factors that are not unique. The first one concerns workplaces, because while mothers evolve in flexibility and adaptability, workplaces lag behind. What does it mean? It means that mothers adapt their careers to the family needs. After having a child, 23% reduce their working hours. 55% change their working status. And the main reason is to spend more time with their children. But there are all the other reasons, financial reasons, not having enough flexibility at work. Next slide, please. But returning to work after having a child is not an easy task. It can be very hard, especially after a short maternity leave, but we are expected to do so as if nothing had happened. And what happened is one of the strongest, if not the strongest moment in a woman's life. Only 35% of mothers reported from benefiting a gradual return to work, 46% only from adapted working hours, and only 70% have access to teleworking options. We are not supported at the workplace. As a result, next slide, please. Nearly 27% of mothers state that motherhood negatively impacted their careers, which means career stagnation, financial impact, and reduced job quality. So the first factor was workplace rigidity, but at home, things are not quite better. We are exhausted because we carry also a lot at home. Family dynamics often place a disproportionate load on mothers. Next slide, please. Up to 70% of household and caregiving tasks are handled by mothers alone, regardless of their working status. And that is true even in countries with progressive social policies. And this is mainly true also on intangible household tasks, so all the mental load. And so this reinforces the mental health issues of mothers. Next slide. Also, mothers are the default parent for school-age children. Then it comes family support, which is essential. And in third place, we have fathers. And talking about fathers, next slide, please. 37% among them took no or less paternity leave. And this is regrettable because being there from the beginning means understanding what it really takes to take care of a child. It can be very hard, very lonely. Otherwise, the reality is that mothers end up carrying all the responsibilities, which only reinforces gender norms. And the third factor is public policies, which still need to evolve. In the European Union, the minimum standard for maternity leave is 14 weeks, and for fathers is 10 days. So how do we make fathers get involved if they just have 10 days after the birth of their child? If the WHO recommends exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months of life, how can you do that if you just have 14 weeks of maternity leave? 29% of mothers are not satisfied with the duration of the maternity leave, and it can vary of country according to the national policies. In Italy, this figure raises 49%, in Portugal, 48%, and in other countries like Spain, France, Belgium, or Ireland, it reaches up to 37%. And also, 44% of mothers are not satisfied with the allowances received during the same period. Furthermore, there are the childcare expenses. 1 in 3 mothers state that they spend more than 20% of their household income on childcare expenses. So again, childcare remains a private issue that families have to deal and pay for. So you adapt your career as a mother, you're doing a lot at home, and yet you get no recognition. Next slide, please. 41% of mothers find that their role is not recognized by society. And you will see the detail in the next slide. With countries like Italy, just 40%, France, Spain, half of them. So one may think that maternity is a lose-lose situation for mothers. But we carry on because motherhood has some great rewarding, because there is love. Actually, 80% of emotive words described used to describe motherhood by surveyed mothers were positive. So we contribute to society within our families, at work, but we do pay the price, feeling overloaded, depressed, anxious. And this not only affects themselves, but also their children and their families. So you see, this is not a private issue. This, in the end, affects everyone. As Spanish writer and journalist Diana Oliver said in her book, Precarious Motherhoods, quoting the researcher and anthropologist Patricia Marino, for a true revaluation of motherhood to take place, mothers must first be listened to. We have listened to mothers with this MMM survey. Now we have to take this into account to make policies that fit into what mothers really need. We now have concrete data, so we have to turn this into concrete solutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for these numbers that could help us, of course, do something about it. And we are going to have 2 panel discussions. The first one is juggling care and career, and Julie Faubert is going to be our moderator. Julie Faubert she's American, and she studied literature and education in the US. And since 2010, she moved to France. She was working for many years in Paris with the Living School, where it's a special education where children learn to grow their potential, they build confidence, foster harmony, and contribute to a better world. And besides, of course, the traditional subjects, she also is an ethical leadership consultant, helping people place the interpersonal skills at the center of the decisions and daily actions. And she's also a committed advocate for mothers and parents' rights. She presented in last April this year, during a high-level roundtable at the French National Assembly, our survey. So, Julie, I leave you the next panel.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Thank you for this introduction, for this essential information. And as a founder of Be the Change, a company dedicated to supporting leaders, organizations, and parents to reveal their potential, I'm very honored to be here with you today to moderate this important conversation on how we can better support mothers in balancing care and career. Welcome to our first panel. We will be exploring the daily balancing act that so many mothers face, including myself as the mother of 2 young children who are 7 and 4, managing professional ambitions while also carrying the essential responsibilities of care. Today, we are joined by leaders who bring perspectives from policy, business, and research, and together we will discuss not just the challenges, but also the opportunities to rethink how care and careers can truly coexist. So let's begin by introducing our esteemed panelists. Welcome. I am delighted to see Ana Carla Pereira, Director for Equality and Non-Discrimination at the European Commission. Over 2 decades, she has dedicated her career to shaping EU policies on employment, education, and inclusion, and today brings her deep expertise on how Europe can better support equality in practice. Krista Schweng, our next panelist, who led the European Economic and Social Committee as president from 2020 to 2023. She is a member of the Equality Group at the European Economic and Social Committee with many years of experience championing social policies. Krista has been a strong voice for equal opportunities, health, and social rights across Europe. Sylviane, I am very pleased to introduce you to her. She is L'Oréal's Director of Social Engagement and Innovation. She is also the leader of the Engage and Care Corporate Coalition, and she has been at the forefront of building workplace cultures that value care, well-being, and inclusion. Bienvenue. And Dominic Richardson, last and certainly not least, Executive Director of the Learning for Wellbeing Foundation with a background in global research on children and families, including at UNICEF. Dominic brings valuable insights on how well-being and care can be integrated into systems that touch all of our lives. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. We're going to begin with Anna. Can you tell us a bit more about work-life balance and the EU's balance directive that indeed sets minimum standards, but we see that gaps remain? Paternity leave is still short, as was mentioned already, and parental leave is often poorly paid. Flexible working is a right to request, but not a guarantee. How can the EU better incentivize member states to extend and improve these parental leave rights? And what further steps can be taken to strengthen gender equality for mothers across all policies, according to you?
Thank you very much. And thank you to Mothers Matter for the invitation. The issue of care is obviously a very topical and important one always. And this is probably the first point I want to make, is that it is very important to have these conversations in knowing that we have been for decades struggling. I mean, motherhood is there since the beginning of times, but maybe the novelty here is that with the participation of women in the labor market more and more since the 60s, there is this tension between career and family, or career and care. And of course, this makes this conversation very topical. And I would say that without addressing the issue of care, without addressing the participation of women in the economy, in the labor market, then our common goal of being a competitive economy is doomed for failure, because half of the population are women, and not all are mothers, but a significant part of the female population are mothers. The second point I wanted to say is that mothers are also daughters. They're also sisters, and they're also aunts. And the truth is, with demographic aging, care is not just about young children, it's also about parents, the elderly. And so this compound effect that maybe, let's say, in a stereotype life, around your 30s, you have your babies, and then around your 50s, you take care of your parents, is a reality for many, many women. And I think this just calls that for an understanding that care is more than being a mother. It's really about providing care support to different relatives and different people in your life. Now, you have asked specifically on work-life balance, but I would just like to place the directive in a broader context, because as the survey has shown, this is much broader than just parental leaves, paternity leaves. This is about working conditions, meaning that if you don't have flexible working arrangements, you're probably going to struggle very much between your career and your duties or your care duties. It is about fair pay, because very often women decide to shorten their working hours or have career interruptions, and that has an influence on the level of pay, on career progression. And so in many ways, if you do not address what happens in the workplace in terms of your career, you're by default penalizing mothers and women. And in a way, your career, your choice of life becomes predetermined. So I think this is an important point, is working conditions. The second one is to have services that support, whether they are childcare services or long-term care services, if you're taking care of an elderly, for example. So to be able to be supported by services is really fundamental to juggle between care and career. Now, in terms of the leaves and all the rights that are enshrined in this directive, one of the important elements in the spirit of the directive is really the division of care responsibilities between mothers and fathers. This is one of the elements that drove the Commission at the time to present the directive, and in many ways attract fathers to their care duties. Today we are here. I mean, there are very few men with us, but in fact, this is a conversation we need to have with men, most of all, because I think there are many generational differences also within men. Maybe younger men, younger generations are more keen to fully take on their care duties, and it's important to have that conversation with the fathers also. So when it comes to the work-life balance, and knowing that this is in the spirit, is trying to push for an equal division of care, we have indeed looked for parental leaves allowances that are adequate. Is it happening? Not as much as we would wish. And so this is one of the points that needs to be addressed. And of course, when we look at the directive and we say we need a parental leave allowance that is adequate, what does it mean? I think this is an important point. First of all, it means that it needs to facilitate the uptake of parental leave. So if the Commission doesn't see that the parental leave by fathers is increasing, there might be an issue with the level of adequacy of the allowance. And so this is, in our view, an incentive for member states to look deeper on how their systems are in place. Is it really happening? Not yet. And that's why we are now analyzing the situation across the member states. In 2027, we'll have an implementation report around the directive, and this will allow us then to bring to the fore the situation across the EU. I see that I've done more than my time, but I'll come with the other points after.
No, thank you so much. And it's because we have limited time, but you're absolutely correct that it is about incentivizing recognition of this leave. So the implementation plan will be essential for this. Thank you so much, Anna. We're going to turn to Krista now, and many of the topics will be related, of course. In terms of how you see the European care strategy, and a lot of what Anna Carla has just touched on, it has helped to highlight the vital role of care in society and the economy. However, as also has just been said, it's still being undervalued concretely, and being mostly done by women, fueling more gender gaps, as we have seen also in the room and in other rooms as well across Europe. So what further steps, according to you, are needed for workplaces and society in general to start truly valuing caregiving? And how can the strategy and other EU initiatives be strengthened to promote gender equality and improve conditions for both carers and those receiving the care?
Thank you very much, and also thank you very much for having me. I really enjoy uh, being participating in this conversation, which is indeed really important. But I think for me, it's a lot about choices. And what we have and what we see currently is not really that we are having the right choices and the right methods in place. But a lot has already been done. Nevertheless, let's be also clear on that we have the situation has improved a lot compared to, I don't know, 2, 3 decades ago, no doubt about that. But we are still not on an equal distribution of care. And the choices that I was referring to, in which I find that every mother, every parent should have the opportunity to, are of course not now being a little bit shifted. It's not really clear that you have these choices. What do I mean by that? I come from Austria, and we have rural areas where the childcare facilities are open until midday and closed in the summer months. No way to have a full-time job with this kind of structural deficits. Quite clear. This is not a choice. Then you are imposed to reduce your working time as a mother or as a father. But as we all know, usually mothers earn less than the fathers do, which makes them not a choice, but being a logical consequence that she stays at home or reduces the working time and the father doesn't. Is that fair? No, certainly not. But what can be done to overcome that? And for me, the first thing is, of course, you need to have the childcare facilities that match labor market requirements. This is the first thing to do. But even then, if you have the opportunity to have your child taken care of, let's say, from 8 in the morning to 6 in the evening, which parent would like to have the child in an institution the whole day? So this is also something where we think we need to be very clear about that. That's not the absolute desirable situation for somebody. So that means that you need to be not only dependent on the institutions, but you need to be also dependent on your partner, on the father. And that is not only for me a financial thing. For me, it's also a lot about perception and about awareness. So still in a lot of surroundings, taking father's leave, parental leave as a father is seen as something odd. There is still a very conservative mindset around that, and this needs to change. But we all know also changing mindsets doesn't happen from day one to the next day. So this will take time, and it needs incentives like the one that you were referring, Anna-Carla, to, meaning that drawing up the reports, looking at the financial incentives, looking at what are the surroundings. But it's deeply anchored in the heads of people. So I think this is also something that we always need to keep in mind. There is one thing that I think plays into the favor of juggling career and care, and that is the demographic shift that we are currently facing. People are baby boomers are leaving the labor market. We are facing a lack of skilled workforce. So there is an incentive and an interest of employers, a natural interest, to do and support families as much as they can. So there are incentives where you pay the kindergarten, or where you even offer childcare facilities for yourself, or you offer flexible working time, or you try to support family-friendly policies just in order to attract those people that you really need on the labor market. And I think this is also something that we should take in mind, should take in mind. What I think is also there a lot of tax policies and pension policies that can also support or not childcare. So I think we come to that also for the second round of questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We turn now to Sylviane Balustre d'Erneville. Désolée, tout à l'heure, j'ai pas dit votre nom de famille. Many measures have been implemented at L'Oréal to help parents. extra maternal leave, childcare services, flexible working, support services, a lot of what has just been mentioned during this panel discussion. Can you tell us a bit more what have been some of the outcomes of these initiatives? And in a nutshell, tell us what the Engage and Care Corporate Coalition is and what you hope to achieve for parents specifically in this important work.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here to talk about mother and at work. Indeed, it has been quite a hectic topic over the years, and at L'Oréal, we started to address this issue a long time ago. The very first initiative that was taken was in the 60s years, and we put in place what we call now Schweller Leave, which is the name of our founder, and it's 4 weeks fully paid maternity leave on top of the legal one for France. And with year, we decided, of course, to move further. And 30 years ago, we put in place a worldwide program, which is called Share and Care, which is a kind of a social protection platform. Of course, we got inspiration from the International Labour Office. And over the last years, we indeed developed a lot of initiatives within this program, mainly based on welfare, but also health and workplace initiative, and of course, parenthood, caregiving, to support women, but also to support fathers. And I want to share another story about that. That was maybe 15 years ago, more than 15 years ago, we were supporting a grassroots association. And the founder came to us to ask us if L'Oréal would support the launch of a maternity charter, maternity at the workplace. And I said to this lady, of course we will, but what I suggest is maybe not to launch a maternity charter, but to launch a parenthood at workplace charter. And today, so that was for France perimeter, for France region, and 15 years later, half of employees in France are covered by this charter. So this is one of the outputs that we could underline. And to come back on this Share and Care program that we put in place, of course, the purpose of this program is to really to support all employees all over the world, whatever the region they work in, to make sure that we have a minimum standard of support. And to give you a glimpse of it, about the parental leave, we have a minimum standard of 14 weeks for maternity leave, fully paid, and a minimum of 6 weeks fully paid for fathers and the second parent. So the output of that is that in every country where we operate, employees can benefit from such services, and that's changed, of course, the organization from inside, because, you know, some years ago, maybe some 20 years ago, we were maybe less than 50% of women at the top management, country managers or brand managers, and today this is more than 50%. So this is just an example of promotion. And maybe my last word would be that it is really important to have a systemic change and a systemic approach. And for me, I strongly believe that public policy, but also private policy and initiatives must be in place. And this is why we have decided 1 year ago to gather with other companies. So we are today 70 businesses operating worldwide, and we have launched the Engage and Care Corporate Coalition. So all these businesses have a great and strong commitment to support and to put in place some care initiatives to support parents and especially mothers.
Bravo. Wow. I wish I could give every panelist more time, but thank you so much. It's wonderful, and going to be very complimentary with Dominic, with whom we are going to talk a bit more about the research that is very much related to what you've just said about these outputs that you've been measuring that shows that when parents are supported, children thrive. So from your perspective, what are the long-term consequences for society and for children's well-being of failing to support mothers in balancing work and care?
Swap. Thank you. It's a great privilege to be able to come and speak to you all about the survey and about mothers. You won't fail to notice I'm not a mother. I'm a father of 2 boys, but I've been working in this area for a couple of decades, and I just want to focus on what policy can do. I'm not going to try and represent personal experiences because that would be quite inappropriate. About the same time that Make Mothers Matter was being formed, Europe was coming out of the Second World War. And I don't know whether you know where the word welfare comes from, but it's an antonym. It's the opposite of warfare. It was coined to say that with welfare, we won't get into trouble in the future. And what we have right now is a failure of welfare to support mothers properly and to support families properly. And the costs are huge, both private and public. We know that when mothers are not supported to parent, it affects their mental health and well-being, and we've seen that in the results. Evidence shows, and I don't want to talk about because we have more distinguished guests here, who would tell you that mental ill health in the family is passed on from one person to another, and the children will suffer. The home learning environment will suffer. The ability of the mother to engage with the labor market and build a future for that family and contribute to the family will suffer, and poverty becomes entrenched, and gender inequality also. And then little boys and girls grow up in families and societies which continue to produce the same type of inequalities. Now that's just on the private side. On the public side, people have talked to this. The economic costs of excluding part of the population from the labor market are huge, incalculable. I should have picked an easier word. The social costs too. The influence of women in business or in politics, or in the labor market writ large. We don't know the costs of those things, but we all see that it's certainly living in suboptimal systems, lower productivity and growing inequality. And I said before, the entrenchment of negative social norms. Now, public policy is designed to close differences. That's what it's for. It's not here to encourage the labor market to run off and do the best it can, or to create income inequality or categorical inequalities like gender inequality. And my fear is that public policy is not just failing to close them, it's actively contributing to their widening. There's no parental leave policy when you take it off paper and you put it into practice, which treats men and women the same. It makes women seem less valuable in the labor market because we can't incentivize men to pick up their equal share when they have an equal share. But that's in like one country, the rest, there is no equal share on paper. And that feeds through into differences between men and women right from day one, when they become parents, the gap begins to grow. Now, this isn't a diktat from on high. It doesn't come in with this is how it should be, but our policymakers continue to recreate this failing. So how could they deal with it? It's not just a viable situation to be in, and we have answers to these problems. I heard some colleagues talking about incoherence in the way childcare is managed in rural Austria according to family needs or breastfeeding policies. The policies need to be coherent with the needs of the family, and they need to speak to each other. We need integrated approaches. Coverage cannot be a question, not just one family or another, just some mothers or another, it's everybody. Coverage really, really counts in advance of adequacy, because you put money into something only half of the people get, you're back to creating inequality. Coverage is primacy in this issue, and that means we need to take a closer look at social insurance policies, or policies that only go to the very poor, or policies that only go to those in the labor market. Because if we don't clear this up, we continue to create inequality, and the burden of all of this family inequality is on mothers. So I think we should be changing the discourse first and foremost. Family policies, despite families being, and children being 20% of the European population, get just about 2.5% of the GDP. That's well off. The nature of evidence we use for families and family outcomes can't be just about whether some of these policies work at the household level, because then we miss what the population levels effects are. We could be inadvertently leaving mothers and children and families behind. So my position is that all of this loss and the time we're wasting and the lives we're affecting by trying to select our policies and slice them up and give just bits here and there, instead of making sure everybody gets the support they need, should change our discussion in Europe about family policies from not about who doesn't get it, but about who should get more.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your answers that deserve more time. And I hope that these conversations will be continued beyond today, of course. I want to open it up. I believe that we have some questions as well.
Well, we've got some online questions, but would you like to tackle questions here first, physically, and then, because we've got quite a lot of activity on
Wonderful.
the role of fathers.
Yes.
It's all about getting men involved in the conversation. So do you want me to crack on with the online, or do you want to open it up to the floor?
I'd love to open it up like
Okay.
you've suggested, and we can come back to our online participants.
Okay,
I would say you've all given very complimentary answers about recognizing the value of care and including everyone. And I would love to follow up with this question of how can there be an incentive to recognize care starting today, not years from now, based on all the hard work you've already been doing, the changes that have already been implemented that are there? What is something that people listening to us online, in person, maybe future on in a replay, what can they take away today, right now, to start making that gender gap smaller and getting fathers, getting co-parents more involved, whether it's in companies, public, private sector? What is maybe the last word you'd like to contribute in making that care very valuable, which seems to be a common denominator in all of your answers?
Yeah, I can bring in personal experience as a father here. We suffer sometimes social norms coming in from the other side, expectations to stay in work, to work longer hours, whatever it might be. And at the same time, as I point out, the public policy concern, which actively disincentivizes the family to share the employment burden. Men don't have the leave available to them, and they're not able to care because we start trading off income security for family attachment. I think if we were just to first clear the field in the sense that remove the disincentives for families to sit and discuss about how exactly they want to do this. And certainly everybody needs to open their eyes more to the evidence. We pay a lot of lip service to the importance of the first years of life. But they actually receive the least public investment across the entire child life course. That's when parents are least attached to the labour market. That's when most countries, when it comes to social protection, begin to create divisions, not just within families, but within communities. And in Europe right now, between countries, because of the variance in the offers, I just want to caution, I do not think solving gender inequality in the household is the burden of the family, because the family is disincentivized to move in different directions. If you create a pond and it's dirty and you take the fish out and clean them and you put them back in the pond, they get sick again. They'll go back to the same processes. So yes, men need to pick up their share But I think within the family, sometimes it's a joint decision based upon the construct of the things around us that push some of these people into maintaining these damaging gender norms.
Thank you so much. I also am hearing you're saying both, in the sense that you're saying have a conversation, telling families, talk to each other, sit, talk to each other, say what you want to do together as well. And it's not only your burden to carry, it's also up to policy to act. Can I open it up to either one of the three of you?
Yes, very spontaneously. Within company where we used to talk about employee experience, and this is something that put a light on, the experience that an employee can have from the starting point within the company up to the last point. When the person is retiring, for example. What I want to share is that we maybe should talk also about citizen experience, because when we are working within a company, we are first also a citizen. And for me, this is, as I mentioned before, a very systemic issue, a systemic problem that we need to address from education first, so that we can also address the prejudices that exist within the society between women and men, and within the company, of course, also. And this is why this is important to really articulate several policies, diversity policy, diversity and inclusion policy, care policy, but also global HR policy to make it happen within the private sector. And this is the way we could move. And of course, the dialogue between companies, so that we can push the line, so that we can move the line internally within our organizations, but also externally within the global society. And so this is one of the reasons why we created this Engaging Care Corporate Coalition. And really the purpose is to find a way to change things in a sense of the way that women and men can see each other in the domestic environment, but also in the private one.
And it's very important what you've just said about being a citizen, in the way that sometimes mothers will introduce themselves in front of a schoolyard and say, "Oh, I'm so-and-so's mother." And I will often say, "And first you had a name. What is your name?"
Exactly.
And so saying you are a citizen first for companies is a huge lever for really making changes company-wide and having examples like the coalition. Thank you so much. I want to give each of you a chance to respond as well.
Yes, maybe I would like to pick up on something that Dominique mentioned on the public policy point, and to start by saying that one of the important things is to give monetary figures to what we are talking about, because as we know, decision-making is very often driven by that. And just this recently, Eurofound published a report that gives new figures, and they estimate that the opportunity cost of unpaid family childcare is around 470 billion a year. I think that should speak to some who don't really care about care, but care about money. And realizing that this is not a free ride. Someone is holding this cost for the society, and is mainly women. Because I think when we talk about public policies, there is very often the question, it will cost to create services. It's already costing. The only difference is it's not in public budget. It's being shouldered by women. And I think this conversation that is not about the household, is a more macro one, is necessary for others to join in. The second is really about what happens in the household in terms of taxation, and what are the incentives for a household, a family, for one or the other person in the family to take up care duties. And it's clear, as you were saying, that the person who is earning more in the family will have less incentive to reduce hours, to have career breaks. And it's a rational choice in a family, isn't it? Because if you collectively within your household, you're going to lose money. So the taxation needs to be designed in such a way, and the parental leaves, the paternity leaves, the maternity leaves need to be compensated in such a way that it's not about the first earner or the second earner in the family. Otherwise, we will never be able to break this division, because unfortunately, as we know, women are still paid less than men, and gender pay gap is there present for everyone to if they're interested to listen to read. Pension gap is the same. So I think there's something there. And finally, I think there's an issue of redistribution also, because when you look at which are the households that are more at risk of poverty, these are single mothers. And so having services that support, for example, single parents and particular single mothers would be a way to compensate for all this. So I think there are several measures that are, I'm not focusing here on mindsets, etc., but just to say on a public policy point of view, that there are ways of working on this.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Coming back to what you just mentioned on education, I think this is one of the most important roles that where we need to start. Continuing then with the taxation system, having taxation in a way that it does not deprive the second earner. There are some taxation systems where it's better that only one person earns. So removing all these kind of disincentives. And for me, the third level would be then pension systems, meaning that the pension system recognizes periods of care as valuable for the pension. So these would be the three steps that I would see. And coming back also to the single mothers and the poverty issue that we're having, the European Commission will soon issue the poverty strategy, anti-poverty strategy, and it would be good if care would be included in that as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We're getting lots and lots and lots of questions coming in, so my thank you to our online audience. I don't think we're going to be able to cover everything, because if we're going to finish on time, and there'll be another event here in exactly 55 minutes, I think what I'll do is I'll throw some of these comments and some of the questions and just ask the panel to respond to what they feel they can input something to. So for example, we've got from Roche, how to make parliaments and European deputies sensible to this considerable issue of care in order to cope with the question of natality. How can something be made to help mothers and fathers to raise children? Says Susanna Lopez to everyone, we hear a lot about the challenges mothers face after birth, but what about the pregnancy period itself? Why aren't we addressing many of these issues right from the very beginning of life, during the womb? We also, Susanna goes on to make a very good point, if we want to truly change mentalities about motherhood and care, shouldn't we start with education in youth? So something we were talking about earlier, making it a part of the curriculum, teaching about pregnancy, bonding, the importance of the prenatal and perinatal period at schools. There have been some comments for you, Dominic, that you're absolutely right, from Nikki van der Gaag, who joins us. The structure of the MMM survey report is as much as individual as we need to address both. And we've got, in the labour market, we shouldn't only be talking, says Christina, women in the labour market and income inequality, but about supporting families, mothers or fathers, who choose to stay with babies and small children at home longer, because it is potentially traumatizing for a baby to be left at the daycare at 4 months old, even if the care is good enough. There is a risk he will form an insecure attachment, which may impact his psychological well-being later. many more points coming in, but I'll have to sort of leave you to get a wrap in before we go to Alain Grégoire. Merci.
There are some points here, questions, comments. For the people who in the room
Yeah,
will like
only got about 3 minutes.
to Julie and Camila, maybe Julie. Julie, maybe.
Oh, it works.
Camila, maybe we chat.
Okay.
Julie and then, sorry.
Hello, I'm a mother of two. Yeah? Okay. And I'm a lawyer. So I have I mainly see the financial discrimination of mothers, parents, who basically finance the raising or bringing up of the next generation. And I see here a task not for the family itself and redistribution of care work between fathers and mothers, but it's a policy thing to do. It's the legislator must act, in my perspective, and provide for rules which ensure that indeed, as the online questioner also said, choose to stay at home with their babies or little children and that they get rewarded financially. That's, from my perspective, the basic thing. And I had now in the discussion the impression that there's a confusion. Do we now talk about redistribution of tasks between men and women, or do we talk about society helping the family and helping them to be able to choose to stay at home? Because I think that many mothers do not work because they want to, but because they have to for financial reasons. So that's also a social question I see here. So that was my comment on this.
Thank you so much. And Camila?
Thank you. So I'm from Portugal. My name is Camila. I would like to ask you, make a comment. Krista was talking about the conservative mindset. The problem in many EU countries at this point is that the conservative mindset is gaining political power. And we see this in Portugal. So are we at the risk of losing a gender equality agenda? Do you think we can lose it? How can we protect it as a civil society? And how strong is the gender equality issue embedded in the EU culture that it can resist a shift to the extreme right if it happens? Thank you.
Thank you. I would like only, in addition to your speech, I think we have on the one side the care for the babies. We have on the other side the care for the old people, but the most care is for the man. And I think this is important to say. The care for the man is for the whole life. And sometimes my feeling is after the first 3 years, there is a baby in the family. Then the men have the idea it's a nice situation to be a baby in the family. And then you have, as a mother, not only three babies, you have 3 babies and a man. It's the same as 4 babies. Yes, and my question is, yes, really. And I think this is, we have to say, what is normal? For example, man in the parliament, they have always, everything is clean, everything is perfect. They come in them on Monday in the parliament. I do this myself. And I think this is, I think the most care problem is the man.
Krista, before I want to hear your answer, I do just want to share, I've been reading a lot about boys and about men and about education, and having worked as a teacher for 15 years, seeing the differences between girls, boys, and as they grow, and that they are complementary. While I hear what you're saying, and I see you, and I see mothers living this, and I listen to them as I coach them and hear their suffering. I also hear the suffering of men, and the suffering that comes from boys who are now being embarked into different areas. So I wanna leave room for Krista to answer. I just wanna say, I feel we need to get back to being complementary, that we are part of a team, and that when we see one another that way, and it's a long road ahead still, inviting men into the conversation. I'm glad Dominic is part of this panel. Thank you so much. This is where also we can change lives for women.
I couldn't have said it better, I have to say, because this is precisely what I was pointing at. There needs to be an understanding between men and women about not the roles, but the fact that they are equal, but they are not equal in a sense that they are the same. So I don't know how to express that better in English. I'm sorry for this. But I think it's the complementarity they were just heading at, and I think this one is important. But this needs really a change in mindset from the very first day of education. And I think this is important. And here, mothers also have an important role, just like fathers. And coming back to the question that you just raised, I can only say, I hope not.
I am so sorry. Our time is up. Dominic's going to bring it home. He's going to conclude very succinctly before we pass it on to the next panel.
Yeah, I'll just on behalf of Metman. We talked about the recreation of damaging social norms, and so I think it's important to recognize that when people do things, they count on a rationalization as to why they should do it, resources and information on how to do it, the time to do it, and the agency to do it. And as long as our norms allow all of those things to be recreated, you're going to come up against a generalization. It's helpful for passing on a message, a didactic tool right now, but there's lots of different men out there, lots of different families, and actually what we need to do is embrace the complexity of what it means to raise children, and embrace the complexity of what it means to turn the damaging situation of entrenched gender inequalities, increasing income inequalities, and worsening childhood conditions, and so we're not going to stand it anymore, so we're going to turn the whole thing around.
One word, enough.
Yeah.
We really are going to be thrown out of the room as well, aren't we?
Let me just say that the Commission has adopted a roadmap for women's rights around the International Women's Day this year. This roadmap has 8 principles. One of them is about work-life balance. And next year, around the International Women's Day, we are presenting a gender equality strategy. Yes, there is challenge out there. Yes, there is a backlash on the narrative, but the Commission is committed in pursuing gender equality. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and Julie, for putting everybody into time. We are a little bit behind the time, but we're going to catch up. Alain. So the next panel is going to be maternal mental health. And Alain is a retired consultant perinatal psychiatrist and honorary senior lecturer at the University of Southampton. He was the founder and is the current chair of the Global Alliance for Maternal Mental Health and the founder and the president of the UK Maternal Mental Health Alliance. He began his postgraduate medical training in obstetrics, but on finding that the illest women who also received the worst care were those with mental health problems, he switched to psychiatry. Alain, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much indeed. And it's a huge pleasure to be here today. Coming from the UK, I feel I'm usurping a bit, but I brought my French passport with me. Alors, je suis européen, and it's wonderful to see our Norwegian colleagues who are half in, half out of this community. But it is extraordinary how worldwide people are able to ignore nation and gender and many other boundaries and unite around the crucial importance of this critical time in human lives, which is the time when we transition from adulthood to childhood, not childhood to adulthood, when we produce the next generation, and what humanity relies on to produce a healthy, trusting, democratically sensible next generation is the nurturing care that they receive from their parents. And we may not all have been mothers. Some of us are fathers. I'm a very proud father of 3 adults now, but we have all been babies. And what we are now, sitting around this table and online all over the world, is very much, the science now tells us very clearly, very much a product of our experiences when we were babies. And this science was actually hard to believe when it started to emerge 20 years ago. But it is absolutely irrefutable. And what we see is not only that our lives are not irreversibly governed, but certainly are governed by our experiences and our environment when we were babies and fetuses. So when we talk about early childhood and the importance of early childhood, we really must be thinking about early childhood. We're not talking childcare. We're not talking about primary school age. We're talking about pregnancy and the first year or 2 postnatally. That's when we are shaped. And what is that environment for us? It's not public policy. It's not the financial state of our nation. It's not presidents. It's not EU commissioners, dare I say it, or MEPs. It's our parents. It's the people, largely our parents, who provide us with that nurturing care. And certainly in pregnancy, it's the environment that is provided by our mother in pregnancy. And that is crucially important. The science makes it very clear, both in terms of human development, and it also makes it clear in terms of later impact on humans, on society, and on our economies. And yet, what do we do with that science? That amazing science. We're the first generation to know this. What do we do about it? Exactly. That's what we do. Nothing. Nothing. Systematically nothing. Now, I'm being a bit unfair because people are beginning to try to do things. And I think the greatest hope in the world lies in this very room, because Europe could lead the world as a group of high-income countries who have access to the research, who have access to the thinking about human values as well as economic values, and who have a leadership that is not yet swinging to the far right. Let us act now, and let us act urgently. I've wasted a vast amount of time without introducing our wonderful panelists, so let me do that. And we initially have a video from Maria Walsh, a member of the Parliament here, which we will see in just a moment.
Hi everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to say a few words at this very important launch. Although I can't be with you in person today, I'm really proud to support the launch of the State of Motherhood in Europe survey. As a co-chair of the European Parliament's Intergroup on Mental Health and a member of the Committee on Women's Rights and Gender Equality, I know how vital this research really is. It empowers us to build a fairer, more inclusive mental health system, one that truly listens to mothers and responds to their needs. The findings are sobering, with 1 out of 2 of mothers who were surveyed stating very clearly that they have suffered from mental health issues, including depression, anxiety, burnout, and postpartum depression, while 41% of mothers feel that their role is not recognised by society. This data highlights where urgent action is needed and where glaring gaps remain. Motherhood is still far too absent from policy and public debate. Throughout my work here in Parliament and with organisations like Make Mothers Matter, we're pushing to change that. Because if mental health is truly a right for all, maternal mental health must be part of every conversation. I want to thank you again, and special thanks to Make Mothers Matter and to everyone involved in this very important work. I really look forward to next steps ahead with you.
So thank you very much, Maria Walsh, for that introduction and those last words, next steps ahead for you. And I hope that with the fantastic panel we have today, we will be exploring not only the challenges, but the amazing opportunities that we now have and how Europe is going to tackle those. And on our panel, we have Lorena Bois Alonso, who is Deputy Director General for Health at the European Commission. Thank you very much for joining us. We have Chiara Piccolo, who is a leader at the Alliance for Childhood, and on behalf of Eurochild. There's an interaction there between those two organizations. So thank you very much for joining us. And we have Ibone next to me on my right, Ibone Olza, who is a perinatal psychiatrist, a colleague of mine from Spain, and co-founder of the European Institute for Perinatal Mental Health. Thank you also for joining us. So what a team. So let me start, Lorena, if I may, by asking you in kind of simple terms, here we are at the EU. What can the EU do? What is desirable in this area? What is possible in this area? And we have to bear in mind that you do not have the power to tell member states what they should do with their health care. But surely, if there's a will, there must be a way to ensure that action is taken for mothers, babies, families, and the next generation of Europeans, and not just wait for individual states to understand the urgency of this. So what can be done at your level? Thank you.
Thank you very much, and let me start by thanking Joanna for inviting me here. It's already more than 20 years that I'm working at the Commission, and I've been working in many policies, really, from audiovisual to digital to cybersecurity, now health. So just to tell that I am not a doctor, I'm a simple lawyer. But something that has been in common to all these policies is this situation of women, underrepresented, discriminated. And when I arrived, it's just 1 year ago that I'm in this job to health. I said, well, maybe here it's a little bit less, but no way. Here we are again with women in a situation of underdiagnosed, biased treatment, lack of research, sometimes not representative because we are not sufficiently represented in clinical trials. And in the particular case of maternal mental health, you add mental health, which comes with, of course, also already a stigma in itself. So in a condition which is typical, I mean, it's only women have it. So it's like la totale, no? You have the worst conditions to attract really enough attention to this condition. Now, rather than what can we do, let me start with what are we doing? And indeed, I thank you for reminding everybody that we are not the solution to all the problems of the world. Because of this competence of member states, but that we do things, and I think we can do things. The policy framework that in which we are working with respect to this particular condition is the comprehensive approach to mental health communication. So we do have a communication that was adopted in 2023, which is in general on mental health. Now, I like to highlight that one of the things that I like the most about this communication, this approach, is that it tries to integrate mental health across all policies. So it's realizing that, of course, mental health is influenced by biological and psychological factors, but also about the context, the family, the community, the economy, the security, everything. So the first thing it's saying is it's not only within the health systems that we are going to be able to tackle this. We need to tackle it in every policy. And this applies particularly to maternal health. And that's what we are trying to do. On the one hand is to explore or support member states in dealing with the more physiological condition, but also in this context. And here I was so happy to see that Ana Clara was there, because you are dealing with a part that I couldn't cover, but that in the communication, we highlight that we need to deal also with the situation of access to employment or unequal payment or precarious conditions, and also of the sharing of domestic and family care responsibility. So this is why, on the one hand, we are, and that's the way what we do in the European Union when we cannot legislate, because we love legislating. We do a lot. We are very good at that, too good sometimes. But when we don't have the competence, what we do is that we support. We support with projects, we support with funding, we support in putting member states together to share. So on the one hand, we have and the communication itself announces a number of initiatives that we are taking. And we have really, for example, the Mind Demand project, which is financed by the EU for Health program that we are dealing with. And this is focusing on one of the things that is common to some of the conditions and diseases that women have, which is the diagnosis, to the better identifying that there is an issue in order to prevent. And here it's support to train the healthcare professionals to identify the symptoms that often are, as you know much better than me, completely ignored. Because of course, women, we are completely hysterical, so we're just very tired, and that's it. We have a number of projects also, like the e-perinatal project, that are on dealing with prevention. And then we have others that are more like Happy Moms, dealing with, these are Horizon Europe projects, so are investing in research to explore more the physiological mechanisms. Now, I'm happy to say also that something we do at EU level is that we have the European Medicines Agency that approves, it provides the marketing authorizations to medications. And recently we granted the first marketing authorization for the first medication to treat postpartum depression. It's called Suranolon, and apparently it's the first one ever on this matter. So that's some good news, I would say. And the other thing that we are doing is trying to support member states in implementing the legislation we have on transparency of equal pay and the work-life balance directive that were dealt with in the previous panel. Now, that's the type of things we are doing. This communication has a support of 1.3 billion euros in funding. So there are a number of projects that are ongoing, and some of which, as I was saying, are dealing with this specific issue. There is a monitoring of the implementation of this communication that has like 20 flagships. So just to say that something is being done. Could we do more? Probably. But just to tell you that, because this often comes, we were apparently very successful in when we adopted some years ago the Beating Cancer Plan initiative, and this was a big thing. And now everyone is saying, "Oh, please do one for rare diseases, and we want one for cardiovascular, and we want one." And we have been asked for one for mental health as well. I want to say here that we have this framework communication that I think that rather to come with more and more and more things, what we have to do is to implement what we have. Because we often have in these political cycles in the commission like that now is a new cycle. And then, oh, because I'm the new commissioner here, I need to come with a new initiative. From my point of view, we have the one we have, and what we really need to do is to remind, as you were saying, that this is here, that we need to implement it, that we need to have these forums, these debates, and for that we really are very committed to continue to support. Voilà, that's what I wanted to say at this stage. Happy to intervene later.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So clearly some action underway, but the scale of the challenge presented to us today really, I think, underscores how much more needs to be done. And clearly, you are in a situation that is very difficult in order to respond to that. But respond to it somehow or other, we must. Let's have a look at the role of other players in this, and child organizations interested in the welfare of children are obviously a very important part of this. Chiara, you represent a network of these. And the question I'd like to ask you is that given all this new, relatively new over the past 2 decades, research that we've been seeing, saying that the well-being, both in terms of health, physical and mental, the development, how well children do in their education, their future well-being as adults and functioning and productivity as adults is governed by those very early year experiences. Is the message getting through to childhood organizations that the way to support children is to support their parents from conception or indeed before onwards? And is that coming through in policy? And if not, what more can be done to get that message there?
Wow. Wow. First of all, thank you. And I'm here as Managing Director of Alliance for Childhood, as a European partnership advocacy lead for Learning for Wellbeing, because both are part of Eurochild. That is a big organization, big network that trying to bring children's voice into policy decision-making process. So in this sense, here I bring the children's voice, and I want to, and I'm talking on behalf of the director of the Eurochild, Sabine Saliba, that could not be attend today. But I want to start with a statement that she said in her speech that I received. Maternal mental health is a child rights issue, because the link between the maternal mental health on children, it's very much something that is already being shown and measured, and we know the impact that this has in the, not only in the first year, but even during the pregnancy. So from even before the birth of children until they grew up, and until, or even when they are over 18. So the impact of the maternal mental health, as I said, we can see on the depression maybe during the pregnancy and also after pregnancy. And we know how this has an impact also during for the children brain development. And in the first year, everybody knows and are aware of the theory of attachment. How is important is the first years in terms of attachment with mothers, and generally speaking of the caregiver, because this has an impact on the future relation that the child will build and will start to live in the society and in all their future relationship. And in the long-term development, we know how much the impact of having a mom that is not full in her health in the long-term development of children, in their school activities, in their, I mentioned already, in relationship, but also in the outcomes, in the achievement that he can achieve or she can achieve. And in most severe situation, we know also the rate of suicide of mothers just after the birth of children. So, as I said, maternal mental health is a child rights, because if mothers don't receive care, children's rights under UNCRC and the European Child Guarantee, the right to health, care, and development are undermined. And the reason why I'm also looking on my note, it's because Eurochild has also published a report where it collects the children's voice. And the report is called How Children Feel. And I would like to read also what children said. One child from Croatia said, problems that adults have are connected to children's lives a lot because adults spread their frustration to children. Another child in Malta explained, your parents should be there for you. Sometimes your parents can cause a bit of your mental health problems. And another added, when my parents listen to me and take my feelings seriously, I feel safe and less anxious. So these voices remind us that maternal well-being is not an abstract policy concept. It's something that children feel and live every day. And let me say that I'm a mom of 2 boys, and I can experience this every day because I'm also a mom that tried to follow her career and trying to balance both and trying to raise up 2 boys. And I hope that these 2 boys one day will stay in this room for talking and discuss on this topic. So I have also this additional responsibility. And last but not least, to come back on what children focus organization can do in this sense. What I just said and mentioned twice, that framing that maternal mental health as a child well-being, bringing lived experience from children themselves by trying to make them be heard and express what they feel. And using data and then economics showing how undertreated maternal mental health leads to higher long-term costs in education, health, and social care. And highlighting good practices so that member states can learn to each other. And finally, I want to end with a message, a simple message. If we want children to thrive, we must start by supporting mothers. Finally, just to mention that Eurochild also published some reports, and one report especially on children mental health, but also another one, a flagship report on children's realities in Europe. Because in the first, Eurochild works a lot of a campaign in the first year, and there are a lot of good practices in different countries and also needs from other countries. So, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And it's great to hear how the world of adult mental health concerns and children's well-being and mental health and development concerns actually can see the relevance of this issue that spans both of them. And of course, it's not just maternal mental health, it is also paternal mental health. And fathers do have a role to play, not just in the social issues of sharing the burden of responsibility, but also in delivering the nurturing care which all of us benefit from ultimately. Thank you so much. And now we turn for an analysis, I'm hoping, because I'm going to question you on that, an analysis of the gaps, but also the opportunities. So are there things that need to be done, and what can be done in relation particularly to maternal mental health And given that you're a perinatal psychiatrist, particularly in those very early, that very early period that we were talking about. So Yvonne, I'll hand over to you.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you so much. I'm so delighted to be here today because I come from a group of mothers in Spain that started El Parto es Nuestro more than 20 years ago to eradicate obstetric violence. So I'm very happy that Make Mothers Matter, I love your name, brought mothers' voices here. And yes, I'm a perinatal psychiatrist, an infant psychiatrist, and there have been many things said already. But to summarize, there's been amazing research the past years regarding the maternal brain, the neurobiology of childbirth, breastfeeding, and the results of all this research are beautiful. Basically, continue what Chiara was saying, now we know that all of us, all human beings are born in love. We're all born in love with our mothers. And it's very important to think of what newborns, infants, babies need. They need to be close to their mothers. They prefer to be in intimacy, close skin to skin. They like to be breastfed. And infants and babies mostly need their mothers to be well because they love them. And if their mothers are not well, the babies suffer. And pregnancy, someone was asking, brings an amazing transformation of our bodies and also of our brains. And now we know this is called matrescence, this brain transformation during pregnancy. It's actually an improvement. It's an improvement of our brains that are wired to put empathy and mentalization at front. So mothers are wired to put their children's priorities first, always. And that's the reality we have to think. Because this matrescence brings also a vulnerability. Why? Because our societies put mothers in an impossible dilemma. Society puts pressure and stress on women, asking them many times to do the very opposite of this biological programming. So we have to recognize this reality because we have to support women so they can be the mothers they want to be. And the numbers are really worrying. And this inform from Make Mothers Matter is very important for that reason. We know that at least 1 in 5 women will suffer a perinatal mental disorder, and 7 in 10 will hide their symptoms because of fear of being judged or criticized as not being good enough mothers. And this depression and this anxiety from pregnancy can cause obstetrical complications. Okay, so it's all together. It's time to put together physical and mental health. Pregnancy is a precious time. It comes with a specific psychological process, with psychic transparency, with ambivalence. And it's important to let pregnant women enjoy and reflect and have time to think. Pregnancy is an amazing time. If we work with the mothers and the families and the fathers, it's the best time to stop and break the vicious circle of mistreatment, of infant mistreatment. So these are critical times. 1 in 4 or 5 pregnancies end up in miscarriage or stillbirth. And it's important to name and see also the pain of these mothers that many times goes unseen. And obstetric violence leaves many mothers traumatized. We just finished a European cost action, and we found that 1 in 3 mothers in the European Union come out of birth with some type of PTSD symptom many times because of mistreatment. This needs to change. This trauma affects the infants, the partners, and the families. Having a premature or a sick infant increases this stress. And unfortunately, most hospitals still do not apply optimal family-centered models of care. And most mothers want to breastfeed, but many of them have very poor, bad advice. And this is very much influenced by the formula industry that still makes a big business out of this frustration. So this has to be tackled. No wonder mothers are stressed. So what can we do? The first thing I think is understand this is a human rights issue, as you said. We have to ensure respectful maternity care. We have to eradicate mistreatment and obstetric violence, and we have to provide a care that gives mental health the same considerations as physical health. We need to be very creative. And we need to to offer this respectful, compassionate care, starting by the most vulnerable diets, the migrant, the refugee women, those living in poverty, the mothers of sick infant, single moms, teenage mothers, those who struggle with mental health problems. We need to train mental health professionals, but also all maternity professionals and all society to make sure all these women will get the proper care. Perinatal mental illness is the leading cause of late maternal death. Suicide is a common cause of death for mothers. And we have to make sure all the women who have these complex and severe mental health issues get the care they deserve. And for that, we have to develop specialized perinatal mental health programs at all levels. And that includes opening mother-baby units in all European countries, so the mothers who need an inpatient treatment can benefit from it without being separated from their infants. We have to support motherhood from conception. And I'd like us to think about all those young women who want to be mothers, and they give it up because the scarcity of resources, because they feel it's impossible to be mother nowadays, being 20 or 25. So we need to support them, and we have to make facilities, educational, universities, child-friendly. So young women who wish to become mothers can also follow their studies. We have to improve breastfeeding support. We have to make the infant code mandatory. We have to develop policies, and we have to welcome breastfeeding moms and children everywhere, and also make sure that they can return to work and lactate as long as they wish. It's a private decision, but we need to support them. And we have to make sure that fathers understand their crucial role supporting breastfeeding, because they are the key issue many times, and men need to understand how important this is. We have to not to forget the mothers who are grieving their stillborn babies, and we have to make sure we promote trauma-informed guidelines for perinatal care that include perinatal loss. And we have to abolish surrogacy and all forms of reproductive exploitation. So basically, I'm going to end. We have to promote the most compassionate, exquisite, delicate care to all mothers, prioritizing the vulnerable ones. So to make this love story between newborns and mothers happen, grow, and span through our entire lives and societies.
Thank you. Thank you so much, all three of you, for those rich perspectives. We're still left with the challenge of what are we going to do to make things better? Not just be satisfied about the really important research that's emerging, the policies that are emerging, the things that we've been trying to do, because they are not working. Because the results that Make Mothers Matter have shown today make it absolutely clear that women are crucially discriminated against and disadvantaged at the most important time in human existence. What more important thing is there for us as biological entities, as human beings on this planet, than reproducing? And ideally, to do it successfully if we want to maintain democratic societies. And to do that, we need the mental health of women and the happy functioning of women in our societies. Now, we probably have some questions. We have a few minutes left. There are lots of things I'd like to ask our panelists, but I'm not going to. I'm going to ask the floor if they have any questions, and indeed our listeners at home. Or elsewhere in the world, not necessarily, maybe at home, maybe not at home. So.
Yes. Hello, I'm Françoise. I'm a mother of 4 kids, and I did breastfeeding. I breastfed my 4 kids during, in total, 11 years working. My question is more, maybe sharing my thoughts. When I was at work, telling my colleagues that, yes, I have 4 kids and I'm caring about my kids, immediately they thought, well, I'm disengaged from work. Whereas, close to my friends or, neighbors or whatever, telling that I was working full time, they told me, well, you're not caring your kids then. So how can we shift this mindset, and reconcile work and caring of your kids and family, because it's not opposite. It can go hand in hand. Thank you.
Whatever you do, you can't win. Panelists, any comments or responses to that? No. Okay. Well, it's a very important reflection, and maybe we should change it to whatever you do, you are winning. And of course, you know, in the concept of parenting and parental mental health, we have the idea of good enough parenting, and maybe we should have good enough workplaces, not always being the perfect work person as well. Any further questions from the room?
Yes, thank you. Maybe a comment. I'm working for a French organization named Elburn, and we work on the burnout of the woman. And I have to say thank you for this study, because it's crucial to understand that burnout is not only linked to work, but also it is linked to parental conditions. And this is what your survey is showing. And someone talked about the cost of not tackle this subject. I can say that when we work with women in burnout, we can see the costs. And what is very weird with the burnout of a woman is that when she has a sick leave, so she's out of work, so she's supposed to get rest, but she's at home with the children, and she doesn't succeed to take care of her children. And this is really a big issue to pay attention to that. So really thank you for all this survey and this day.
Thank you. Do we have one question maybe, or comments from online?
Pardon, Lena? Oh,
Lena, sorry.
and then yes, I've got two from the audience.
Okay, it would be nice to, yes.
Thank you so much. My name is Lena. I'm from the National Foundation 1001 Days in Norway. Many of you might be surprised to learn that we have a high prevalence of depression amongst mothers in Norway, although we are a high income country. We have generous welfare systems, but this is not one that we can buy ourselves out of. It's a cultural problem and a structural problem that we have at home. And I just wanted to say thank you to Yvonne for your beautiful, beautiful talk that really touched me on so many levels. You are absolutely right. And I'm wondering, even though if the Scandinavia or northern part of Europe are not a part of the European Union, how can we be involved in this very important work going forward?
Thank you. I think we have to be very creative. And I think what we're doing, asking the mothers, they will each one bring their own solution, because mothers want the best for their children and the realities are very different. So they will come with very creative solutions. But let's remember that the African proverb, we need a village to raise a child. And I think loneliness is a major drama nowadays for mothers. We need mothers to have a community, and we need to promote the community and the community bonds that are almost very fragile nowadays with all these social networks. But we need to go a bit back to close support from the close ones in the small community. I think that's crucial, because many mothers are very, very isolated and alone. And we know that's one of the biggest risk factor for a mental crisis.
Thank you.
Oh, you've got loads of questions.
Yeah.
No, I think that we linked also one of the results, that the recognition of the maternity and maternal work. I think that we need also to change a bit of the narrative of the maternity leave. The maternity leave for me should be a moment of training, because after a maternity leave, a mother will be even more efficient employer after, because has developed a lot of skills, flexibility, quick reaction, management of several things in one moment. So changing the narrative, seeing the maternity leave as a moment of training for those women who are at home in dealing with caring of children and house, means that after she will be even more skilled in different tasks.
Thank you. And of course, we have loads of economic evidence showing that if people are mentally well and well supported and valued, they are much more productive as well. So all of these topics that we've been covering today, inspired by the results of this research, are crucially important, but we also need action, not just talk. Have we got any questions? I want to acknowledge our people online. Is there one we can pick?
Absolutely.
In the few seconds we have left.
I think that we may be safe. We may not be thrown out of the room at 6 o'clock. Right, Afaf? Can we continue? Okay, right. So in the there are actually quite a few comments. We're talking, says Klaus Kapell, we're talking from the point of view of our cultural background. The possibility to reach the parents from our culture is realistic. But how can we reach many different cultures living in Europe that have another social understanding of pregnancy and birth? That's quite a critical point. I don't know whether you want to tackle that one and then go through a few more points. So
well, maybe I'll take Chairman's prerogative and just comment on that from a global alliance for maternal mental health perspective. What has bowled me over in my experience of talking to people living in this field, working in this field, experiencing these difficulties the world over, including in low and middle income countries in every region of the world, is that there is a commonality in women's experiences of poor mental well-being. And they may use different words, but the experiences and the feelings they have and the help that they need bond them, join them all together as one. Humans need support from other humans, particularly when they are doing the most difficult thing that any of us ever does, far more difficult than being an MEP or a commissioner or a director general, and that's bringing up our babies, our next generation. And we need the support and help of others. That applies everywhere. We have a lot to learn in rich countries about the solutions that are now being developed in low and middle income countries, which work on social interaction, on support from other human beings, and they are more effective antidepressants in the reality than the medications that the pharma companies are charging vast amounts of money for, including zuranolone. I'm going to be killed by somebody for saying this. But it's all very well approving those, but actually if it distracts both money, attention from the real needs of mothers and indeed fathers at this time, which is support from society, valuing from society, and valuing from other human beings. That would be a shame. And that joins the whole world together.
Emma Holton, author of best-selling book Deficit, she has just commented about that the macro perspective is important. And based on this LSE report as well, that estimated the cost of maternal mental health on mothers and children and concluded that investing in maternal mental health services would cost 5 times less than that cost. And Claire.
I just want to thank everybody for being here, the representative from the EU Commission, the EU Parliament, and she's gone from the EC. But thank you all the important things have been said. And I just would like to emphasize the fact that all the legislative tools brought about by the European Union, just putting care and the importance of motherhood and fatherhood, because it's important for the mothers, for the fathers, and for the children who are really impacted by what the parents do. And the challenges that mothers are facing demand really collective responses. And I urge the policymakers to really listen and act upon what we have been saying today. employers and workplace to consider their employees as persons woven into relationships that are the backbones of our community. And all of us who were here or online, the media, the influencers, please let's change our outlook on parents, mothers and fathers, and on care, and consider that as a real contribution to society. So from all the bottom of our heart, from all the teams of MMM, which I thank for the hard work into this event, I thank you all, and let's go to work to change things. Thank you.